In a desperate bid to clean all my crap out, I've been going through old art and old sketches. In this case, we have a drawing that I had done, and it was just kind of like a half-ass sketch, and I've kept it all these years. I'm just like, dude, I got too much stuff. Either I need to make something of these things or I got to throw them out. So I said, well, this would be a good piece to kind of get back in the swing of things when it comes to a form of media that I used to love to work in that I haven't worked in a long time. And that's these guys right here. Prismacolors. I don't know how many of you are familiar with these guys. These are like the baddest of badass colored pencils. And to have a box like this, my internal 8th grader is crapping his pants looking at this because, I mean, I used to do everything in Prismacolors. That was like my #1 go-to media. So the cool thing about Prismas, the reason I like using them, have liked using them in the past, is it's super vibrant. You lay it down, it's got like a waxy, almost crayon sort of finish, but as you come in with the other colors, like you can start to layer and layer and layer, and it gets deeper and deeper and more vivid. The colors work really well together. Now, the way I was taught was you would take your white Prisma, like, at that point where you've blended stuff in, you still have, as I said, kind of like a crayon finish. So what I would do is I would get a white Prisma and you go over the whole thing. And as you can see, it doesn't necessarily make it lighter much, but it does fill it out. It makes everything sort of blend together. And that's always the way I had done it. Well, I found out that there's such a thing as a blending marker, a Prisma blending marker. When I heard about this, I was like, what the hell? Completely out of the loop. And so I ran out to the Michaels. And they had pencil blenders, but I mean, I assume it would just kind of recreate what the white does. So I got this guy. This is, you can't even really see that. It's the Artist Loft, what do they call it? Colored pencil blender. So there's one side that's like a fine tip. There's one side that's like a brush type nib. And what it does is when you run the brush over your Prismas, there's a chemical in there. It's a colorless marker. And there's a chemical that sort of makes the waxes sort of melt and blend together, and you get a more overall coverage. So I was going to use this as an opportunity to kind of, I guess, experiment, for lack of a better term. And so that's what I'm doing here. I took this guy. There's a lot of stuff that's crooked. The perspective is off. The gun is like a weird old-timey gun. It looks like I drew this like I had never seen a gun in my life. I'm Texan, damn it. I've seen plenty of guns, and much less not the type of gun that you would think a robot would use to kill themselves. So I said, let me redo this. I went in, I kind of drew another gun over the old gun that's a bit more like, space alien type blaster. And so I colored the whole thing in, as you can see here. Looks cool. So now was the big moment of truth. I was going to use my Prisma blender, as I said, Artist Loft from Michaels, and that's their brand. As soon as you run over it, everything starts to blend in. Everything becomes more solid, and just over the whole thing, it really, really helps. And one thing I noticed, and this is like a cool thing and also kind of a warning, if you work it too much, really, I would say, like, you just kind of run over it, just run over everything. If you concentrate on an area too much, it's not going to just blend and blend and blend. It's eventually going to start to turn into like a little bit of a muddy mess. So I would say don't concentrate on any areas, any one area too much. But if you have that fine tip, if there's an area where you need to like add some lightness or maybe even whiteness, I've noticed if you keep working it eventually takes the color off. So, and you can go in, and I kind of made some highlights on the gun using that fine tip, just working it and working it and working it. Here we have the final piece after I've run it over. Considering it's my first time messing with Prismas in a long time and my first time messing with this blender, pretty pleased with it. So then from there, I said, okay, well, what else can we do with this piece? There are so many really amazing programs. I know the Adobe version is Fresco, where it recreates pencil and painting textures really, really true. And even the blending techniques and all that stuff, it translates from canvas to digital. And you see a lot of artists are doing really amazing work right now, digital work. And so my thing is like, how could I take that and incorporate that even into my actual fine art work and make that better, make that stronger? And I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of look into what you can do with Photoshop. If you're an artist, that like a fine artist, a visual artist, it's a real good idea to know Photoshop. You're really limiting yourself if you don't know it. I'm sure you could find out pretty much just messing around with YouTube, the basics of what you would need to edit your photos and all that good stuff. So in this case, like I said, my original problems with it were that I didn't like the way the perspective was. A lot of stuff was crooked, like the mirrors and the little nightstand and all that stuff. There was a lot of inconsistencies. So take this guy into Photoshop and, you know, you're able to kind of do anything you want there. I was able to take the robot, kind of lift him up a little bit so the perspective makes a little bit more sense. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it looks better. I pumped up the color a bit, saturated it a little bit. I added a bit of intensity to the eyes. I smoothed a few things out, but I didn't want to mess with the actual integrity of the original. I wanted it to still look like the original. Just, you know, what can I just basically was saying, what can I do with this in Photoshop? So if you see the journey of this piece now from the original drawing all the way through to my Prismacolor, my final Prismacolor piece, and then you take that and you follow it through to the digitally altered piece, I mean, really shows you everything you can do. There's such a wide array of stuff you can do now with all the various methods of creating. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Like it, share it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep putting this stuff up whenever I do any paintings. I'm going to be documenting these things, and some of them I'll go in and do videos like this. Some of them I'll put up on my Instagram. So follow me there, and I'll talk to you guys next time.